Good evening. It is my pleasure to present our Return to School plan for Hybrid 1.1. As a reminder, our district vision for our return to school process has been to safely return all students and staff members to the Warren Township schools. We established late last spring guiding principles that we would prioritize the health and safety of staff and students. In accordance with NJDOE guidance, we would encourage physical distancing, discourage student cohort mixing like those that occur for lunch periods, recess, and assemblies, and encourage and improve hygiene practices while taking into consideration the impact on the mental health and wellness of students, staff, and the school community. Finally, the district's return to school plan will rely on the most up-to-date scientific data and professional recommendations available, while providing flexibility and predictability to families and staff members to the greatest extent practicable. As always, our plans require us to respond to updated guidance from various entities and will be adjusted to follow the directives of local and state health officials and the New Jersey Department of Education. New Jersey Department of Education also requires us to follow CDC guidelines. The return under Hybrid 1.0 prioritized in-person learning to the greatest extent we could. As we all know, the Warren Township students are attending school in person more than any other students in Somerset County. Our efforts in Hybrid 1.1 are to prioritize increased time in person for our youngest learners. This reopening progression, which was shared back in a summer meeting, talked about how we would work to progress across a criteria from Hybrid 1.0 to 2.0 to traditional schooling. What we were able to come up with in the interim is what we're calling Hybrid 1.1, which is a middle ground between Hybrid 1.0 and 2.0, with the goal of bringing back some students more frequently than they already are, until we get to a point where we can move into something more extensive like full school days with lunches or a traditional model. Before I go into the details of Hybrid 1.1, I would like to thank the members of our Return to School Committee who fall into 6 or 7 subcommittees: Facilities, Governance, Instruction, Operations, Technology, and Wellness, being the formal Return to School subcommittees. And then each school has school-specific concerns and considerations that are managed by the building principals. This chart with all of these different details was shared via previous weekly communications to parents and represents the many factors that go into any decision to adjust our return to school planning. It's quite an extensive operation to do something that may seem quite simple at the surface. So what is Hybrid 1.1? Well, our goal here was to transition the greatest number of our youngest students from the rotating AB cohort model into what we call Cohort C, which is coming to school every day. The greatest numbers possible given our existing constraints and health and safety guidelines. That being, how much staff do we have available? What size classrooms do we have available? And are they suitable for young students? Kindergarten classrooms have different requirements as far as bathroom access than other classrooms. What about time to make this happen? Can we maintain 6 feet distancing? What are the impacts on the rest of our operations? The parameters for our consideration analysis were to include all of our K and first grade students at a minimum, and then if we could, to also include our second grade students. Why did we start here? Conditions and health and safety practices allows us to make a change to bring some students back sooner in the existing single session calendar. So rather than wait until we could do more, our thought was, let's get as many of our youngest students back now as we can. Accessing distance learning independently, as we know, is extremely challenging for our youngest learners and their parents. The foundational skills taught to students in kindergarten, first and second grade, especially learning to read, are very difficult to replicate via technology. And the CDC advises that younger children are less likely to have serious cases of COVID-19 and play a relatively limited role in its transmission compared to older students or adults. So what will Hybrid 1.1 look like? The following slides are based on modeling scenarios that were determined by parent responses to a recent survey of K1 and 2 parents. The final re-registration decisions those parents make may require us to make some adjustments. So this is based on the information we know right now. That could change as we get through the week and we get more information from parents about their final decision. I'm very pleased and proud to report that our proposal is that effective Monday, October 19th, all of our hybrid kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2 students will transition to in-person instruction 5 days per week with a dedicated homeroom teacher. That is, they will move out of a hybrid AB into coming to school 5 days a week in the single session schedule with a dedicated homeroom teacher. Full-time distance learning students in kindergarten and grades 1 and 2 will be assigned a dedicated distance learning teacher. I'll go into both of those things in more detail in just a second. As a result of these changes, we will also need to reschedule elementary school conferences to Friday, November 20th and Monday and Tuesday, November 23rd and 24th, to give everybody time for this transition to occur before meetings happen between teachers and parents about student progress. In order to make this consistent from a contractual standpoint and from an operational standpoint, that will apply to all elementary school conferences only. Of course, any parents with questions or concerns about their child's progress are welcome to reach out to their child's teacher at any time. They do not need to wait until conferences, which are now going to be a couple of weeks later in November. For full-time in-person students, so these are all the students coming into our school facilities, students will be assigned to a homeroom teacher with a single teacher. Most students will be assigned to a homeroom with a teacher who is already responsible for their education, but there will be a few exceptions. Class sizes will be affected by the maximum capacity of the classrooms we have available because we need to maintain social distancing guidelines. We anticipate the class sizes to be an average of 11 in kindergarten with a range of 9 to 13, an average of 12 in grade 1, and an average of 13 in grade 2. As a reminder, our district guidelines call for class sizes to be between 15 and 18 ideally, with caps at 20 in kindergarten and 22 in grades 1 and 2. So this proposed bring back of additional students has our class sizes significantly below district guidelines so that we have enough space and distance in the classrooms. For our full-time distance students, because the numbers are so small, students will be assigned to one district-wide homeroom in grades K and 1, and in grade 2, there will be 2 teachers with 2 separate homerooms, which I'll go into. This will mean that there will be a new homeroom teacher for many full-time distance students. In grades K and 1, the teacher who's assigned for the district will be supported full-time by a reading specialist. So there will be a full-time homeroom teacher with support from a reading specialist, which will give additional support to our students and the teacher and instructional flexibility for grouping. In grade 2, we will have 2 teachers with their own homeroom assignments, so 2 sections across the district with opportunities for those teachers to collaborate and combine where appropriate. We anticipate in the full-time distance sections that our kindergarten will have a class size of 19 in one section. In grade 1, there will be 13 students in one section. In grade 2, where we have the highest number of distance students at 28, there would be 2 sections with an average class size of 14. We will need to adjust school hours to reflect the fact that ALT has a separate starting time and ending time compared to Central, Mount Horeb, and Woodland School. More to come on that for our full distance families. I thought it might be helpful to show a visual of what this actually looks and feels like as far as the homeroom teacher assignments. In a typical year under regular operations, if we had a class with 36 students, there would be 18 students assigned to teacher A and 18 students assigned to teacher B. Under hybrid 1.0, those same 36 students were divided into really 3 different groups. Teacher A might have had 8 students in cohort A, 8 students in cohort B, and 2 students on full-time distance learning. That's their all in one class overall, one overall homeroom, but subdivided on A and B days with the distance students there as well. And that might look the same in teacher B. And at our elementary schools, the primary model that's in place is there's a 3rd teacher assigned to that grade level who supports both teachers and all 36 students. This was the accommodation we made to try to support the fact that some students were in person, some students were at home, give us flexibility for instruction, and try to bring down a little bit of the burden on the individual homeroom teacher who's trying to manage all these different things at once. Under hybrid 1.1, we actually add a 4th teacher to the mix for a specific grade level. So we would go down to teacher A, teacher B, and teacher C, who have all already been working with those students, having an equal, if we were equally divided, 12 students each, these are students coming to school in person every day. They would not be responsible for any students who are assigned to full-time distance learning. Instead, we will assign a district-wide distance learning teacher to the grade level who might have the 4 students from this homeroom, plus however many students there might be from other homerooms or other schools across the district. So the same 36 students are being reorganized in different ways. In order to make this happen, that means that some students who are assigned to teacher A or teacher B will move to teacher C. That's a difference in who their primary homeroom teacher is, but it is a teacher who's already been working with them throughout the school year. There are a couple of exceptions where the numbers work out that it's not quite as clean as this example, and that's where we might have students with a new homeroom assignment. And obviously, where the cohort D teacher comes from matters, because if the students are coming from 4 different elementary schools into one combined homeroom, that teacher is coming from one of our 4 elementary schools. And so the students from the other 3 will have a new teacher assigned to them. Our ability to accommodate changes between in-person and distance learning will be dramatically reduced compared to where it is right now. Right now, we've continued to reflect parent change requests almost immediately as soon as we can accommodate it. But this model of going in person 5 days a week requires us to max out our existing resources in terms of classroom space. So, a classroom with 12 students in it right now means that we can legally, under our guidelines of spacing, only have those 12 students in it. And so if somebody wants to come back, we probably will not be able to accommodate that. Similarly, we can't just create a new homeroom for in-person students because we are using all of our staff members to make this happen. So therefore, future changes to a student instructional model after the re-registration takes place this week will be very unlikely to be accommodated under the hybrid 1.1 model. What stays the same? Everything else. So our health and safety protocols continue as they are. The afternoon time and specials will continue as it is. Students will continue to experience a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous live and on-demand learning. Students will continue to engage in technology and non-technology applications. Distance learners will continue to have opportunities to participate in experiences with their in-school peers from their home school, even if they are assigned to a district-wide distance learning cohort. Tomorrow, all of our K1 and 2 parents will receive an email asking them to go into the Genesis Parent Portal and confirm whether or not they are continuing with an in-school model or the distance model, or making a change or requesting a change, and to confirm their use or their waiver of transportation. That information needs to come back to us very quickly because we will use that information to make our final decisions about homeroom assignments, busing, and all of those important things. Each elementary school principal will be hosting a school-based meeting tomorrow to address school-specific information about implementing hybrid 1.1. Our goal is to record those so that they are available to parents who cannot attend at whatever time it's scheduled at each individual building. After that point, we will continue with our homeroom assignments and transportation routing later this week based on the parent re-registration information over the next 48 hours, and we will look to communicate early next week to parents of kindergarten, first, and second grade students all of that information. Staff members who might be responsible for changing homeroom assignments will have time to work together next week so that they can assist students and their families in making that transition. And we will kick off on Monday, October 19th with our kindergarten, first, and second grade students back 5 days a week. In a nutshell, that's the overview of our proposed hybrid 1.1. I think we should be extremely proud of our staff members, administration, Board of Education, community members who have worked hard to give feedback and ideas and ask good questions to help us guide our ability to analyze and ultimately propose a plan which brings back our kindergarten, first, and second grade students 5 days a week, still on the single session schedule, in just 2 weeks.